What's up, you guys? Today we got exciting episode, as usual, I would say, right? But we got special guest. It's a Malcolm Smith, right? Malcolm, thank you for coming on the show.
Happy to be here. Excited to get to talk with you, Igor.
Thank you, Malcolm. Again, I always say there's a couple reasons Malcolm is incredible. One of them is he is the Super Bowl MVP, the 48th Super Bowl MVP. And there's a couple facts, super fascinating facts. One, he's a linebacker, and then only four. I actually checked; it's not three; it's four people ever being like MVP, rewarded as an MVP, right, for a linebacker's position, and you one of them. And only if you guys listen up to that, there's only 58 people ever being as MVP on the Super Bowl. So Malcolm is in that insane category, right? He's joining that super elite club, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Question to you right away. Talking about sports, why football?
The love of sports came from family. My dad was a super competitor on the basketball court with his brothers growing up. It was a way for them to kind of come together on the weekends, go to the park, barbecue, play hoops, bring their kids around. So that's kind of the environment I grew up in. And for me, basketball wasn't always my favorite sport because I wasn't the best, but it was definitely a way for me to bond with my brother, with my dad, a way for us to go out, be on a team on Saturdays and go compete against other guys.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool though. And then did your dad come from professional background?
No, so my dad, he was just a recreational hooper, man. He hooped at the park, and he put us up against grown men when we were kids. So,
wow.
Yeah. So it showed me how to get tough. It showed me how to, space the floor, where to be. And he was critical. He was competitive. He expected us to win. And all those things kind of just made me love sports, made me love, getting with a group of guys and playing.
Yeah. I mean, one thing for sure, it worked because you got to the top level, right? And not just NFL, which is insane by itself, but also the Super Bowl, right? The competitor and the MVP, which is, again, one of the probably highest possible achievements into the world of NFL and the broad speaking, right?
Crazy. Yeah. Even when you say that, it's nuts. You, especially as a defensive player, you don't anticipate that will happen at all. Like going into the game, they say, hey, sign this waiver. If you win the Super Bowl MVP, you say you're going to Disney World, you'll be on the commercial. Here's the amount that we'll pay you. So they send out, everybody signs this paper. Now there's only a few people that see this paper and like that number's not high enough for me because there's a likelihood that I'll win it. So let's renegotiate that contract. But I just signed my name. I was like, sure. Wow. Sitting in the back of a press conference. Yeah, I'll do it. Sure. If it ever happens, not knowing that the next day, as fate would have it, you get a chance to be the MVP and scream, you're going to Disney World and realize, dang, I signed that contract. I should have signed it for some more money.
I'm about to say, this is the business element, right, into the sports again, right? Because they sign you like on a low basis, right? And all of a sudden you hit that jackpot, right? And they got you already.
Right. Yeah.
You can't go back and say,
well, we fought it. We fought it a little bit. We fought it a little bit. My agent was like, "You signed it?" I was like, "Yeah, I did." He was like, we got to go back." And so we renegotiated it. It was an awesome experience getting to go to Disney World and being kind of on that pedestal for a day is a very unique experience.
So did they change the number? Actually,
they changed the number. Yeah.
Here's a little new lesson. Fight for yourself, right? Get a good agent or maybe a lawyer, right? And just fight for yourself for every single possibility, right? Again, I want to go deeper into the business with you and then specifically why, because you ended your career 2021. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah.
Good. And I think a lot of guys who is in the league right now, they can relate. And the reason why, as you playing professional, right, you think it's going to be forever, but actually it might end up like tomorrow. You never know when you're going to stop, right? And I got it from Chase Kaufman, I think, another NFL guy, great guy. And he was saying, so there's only a certain amount of people will have a privilege to retire themselves, right? A lot of them will get retired by certain circumstances, injury, for example. And what I'm saying here, because some people perspective, I'm going into my question. Some people perspective, I'm playing professional sports. I'll focus on one thing. I'm gonna think about my transition into the future when I stop playing. Can you tell us a story of, because you finished in 2021? So did you plan to retire? Did you plan to transition? Have you started educate yourself before you actually retired? So what was the transition looks like for you then?
For me, I kind of came in at the bottom ranks of the roster, right? So I was drafted in the 7th round out of 7 rounds. I was the 11th to last pick. So the expectation that I was going to have a long career, it wasn't there. I just knew that I was going to have to fight for my roster spot at the beginning of my career to kind of prove myself. And after about halfway through my first year, I was like, oh man, I might get fired tomorrow. I might not have a job.
First year.
My first year, I'm just thinking like, okay, typically 7th round players don't even make the active roster. So I was on the active roster. We lost the game. I felt like it was my fault. I called my dad. I was like, man, there's a chance I might be fired tomorrow. It didn't happen, but that feeling of always being on the bubble, on the edge in the beginning of my career started to start to inform how I went about using my off seasons to think about, okay, what's next? Or how long is this going to last? Like I said, my older brother played, and I got to watch his experience being, a star player and then having to become a free agent and fight for his career to continue. And that story happening for my college teammates over and over again. So those were learning lessons. And for me, it was like, okay, I need to figure out what I'm going to be able to do next. So for me, I felt like, coaching was being on that same process. You were always going to see, oh, am I going to get hired next year? Are we going to have to move? I didn't want that. So I wanted to find something that I could do for the rest of my life, a game that I could do forever. And business is that, right? So even though I'm starting at the beginning, I'm fresh into a transition, even though it's been a couple years, it feels like, this is something I could do for the rest of my life. And that keeps me excited. And it also helps me be patient.
Oh yeah, that's I think that's the best way to put it together, right? There's a couple things I want to highlight, right? The one is Malcolm, older brother, right? He was playing sports and he was playing at the top level as well. He was NFL two-time Super Bowl champion, right? If I'm not mistaken.
He got one Super Bowl. He was I think 2-time Pro Bowler, but he also won rings in college. He was a national champion, Super Bowl champion. Yeah.
And then what helped, we talked before about that, what helped Malcolm a lot. So he was following the steps of the older brother, right? He was it was a little bit more certain for him than for the rest of the people because he had an example of the older brother, right? Going through the transition, right? Going through the sports and stuff. And secondly, again, we talked about that before as well. So Malcolm took a deep dive into like, can I educate myself? Can I actually take a next step and not just, because I feel like a lot of people just fall on the safety side, say, I'm going to be coach after I finish playing. I'm going to be doing the same thing, and which is fine. Mm-hmm. But then for a lot of people, it's different, right? Because not everybody is going to be coach because you might not fit for that profession in general, right? You might not get with, kids or, teaching, right? Or passing through the knowledge. But then if you find, like for Malcolm, for example, was a business, right? Mm-hmm. He found himself into the business and he said, can I get the better and deeper understanding of the business, right? Can I go back to school? Can you tell us like how hard it was? Like, I need to go back to study, right? Maybe it was younger guys than me, right? I don't know. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
For me, I felt like, okay, I'm going to be a rookie at something again. And even though throughout my career, I was taking small bites of investments, I was traveling with the people doing the syndicated real estate that I was doing. I wanted to go see it with them. I would ask questions with them. I tried to continue to get myself closer and closer just so I would feel a little bit more comfortable making the investments. But what happened is that it kind of inspired me to understand that, like, okay, this is a game too in itself. There's a pattern here that you could recognize, just like in sports. How can you get better at recognizing that pattern? So for me, school was like, if this is something that everybody or most people that have success in finance or business, they've gone to this path, I guess I got to go down the path. So I was fortunate enough to get in a program with people who are a little older. So I get to share their experiences, but it's I feel like a rookie again, and it's okay, right? I hit a home run with my first life and playing sports
Oh
and
yeah.
that career, so it buys you time, the ability to go and figure out how much can I invest in myself to grow and improve and learn about this
Hmm.
next journey.
That's incredible. So, and I think what else is doing the education, putting the base, and then from that base you can jump a lot higher than just without that beautiful base of education and knowledge. Question two. So you mentioned syndication.
Mhm.
So can you tell us a little bit more about, so where was it, and then what type of deals, and was it the LP, the passive side? So were you a part of it?
Yeah, I was an LP in my first real estate syndication. It was like in Seattle. In
Mm-hmm.
Seattle, it was a Northwestern multifamily syndicator, and it
Mm-hmm.
was on the deal by deal basis. So I felt comfortable, and I got exposure. And he was very welcoming to us and saying, "You guys, I brought a couple of my teammates along. I was like, hey, I might do this. Would you guys be interested?" So we put our money together, and he's like, "Okay, well, come check out the real estate. This is what our plan is
Mm-hmm.
to kind of." To grow these units, the revenue of this building over the course of 5, 6, 7 years, and then we'll sell it, and then you have the choice whether you want to do it again or take your money and do something else. So seeing that process firsthand was like, okay, when I go home in the off season, I started to look at residential real estate here in Los Angeles. I got online and was like, okay, maybe let me learn to see who's flipping houses. I always see flipping houses. That's a way to make good money.
Yeah.
Let me learn about who's doing that. So I got in contact with somebody and followed them around for 4 months before I was like, okay, all right, let's do one. I'm ready to jump into a project. And how do I mitigate the risk? And I mean, along the way, of course, I made mistakes. I made bad decisions. But I think the most important thing I learned making those mistakes was like, just don't wipe yourself out. Don't hurt yourself too bad. Don't
Yeah.
don't take a risk where you're not okay losing it. And if you learn with that lesson, it's almost the same as school, right? So that's kind of how I first got exposed to like what is investing? What is that? What does that mean? And now I just hope to continue to do that in different industries.
Yeah. And I think the what I hear a lot, I mean not a lot, but repeatedly, right? You would learn the process, right? You would take your time, and that's your internal. Maybe it came from parents. We discussed that before, right? So they would teach you the right thing. You just go deeper on the level, learn the process, right? That way you're going to mitigate your risk. That
Mm,
way you're going to just lose a less, right? Or if you lost it, that was a great lesson to learn, right? And
mm,
but you paid minimal risk price. Some people saying take a risk with a small letter R, right?
mm-hmm.
Not the big capital R.
Okay.
So, and what I'm saying here, the question is, did it sold the syndication? Did it went through the full cycle? You already completed? Like, how was it? Was it successful? Was it bad lesson for you?
It
So,
it went well. That one went well. There
uh-huh.
were other ones I was a part of with different groups that we're still in, and that was 12 years ago. So, you then you start to learn about cycles in real estate. And the first one went well. They sold the building, and I was like, okay, this worked. Now I don't need to necessarily clump my money with my teammates anymore. I can do this on my own.
Uh-huh.
I feel comfortable with that. But also understanding, okay, maybe the cycle's changing. Maybe I should hold off or try something else or do something that's faster.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into more single family stuff. So
Hmm.
it's just learning, right? And you can't learn unless you're willing to take some of the risk.
Oh yeah.
And people are usually happy to share, especially with an athlete interested in taking care of themselves in their future versus what you hear or have heard in the past. I think a lot of us are trying to change those trends.
Yep. Yeah. That's great. And the other good thing, I think, for me, that worked for me. So, for example, real estate a little bit slower
Mhm.
for sure, right? A little bit more secure because you got real asset backed by, and by the time you went through the full cycle and you made money there, if you discipline and you learn it every single day, you became more sophisticated. So that opens the opportunity, and that opens the confidence saying, I can try something else, which is a little bit more risky, right? A little bit more operational, a little bit more, I don't know, niche, I would say, right? And
Mhm.
then you take it from low risk to a little bit higher risk, higher return. So that was was it the same for you as well? You said I tried first investing through real estate, which is secure, safe, and then you took money and then put it into something more sophisticated.
I would say I think I learned like the power of buckets and how you can diversify your risk and say, all right, I'm gonna buy some Bitcoin this off season and
Yeah.
learn a little bit about that. And okay, what are the fundamentals behind Bitcoin and why is that any different than me buying this other thing? And I just enjoyed the puzzle of it
Uh-huh.
all in the off seasons. And I'm so glad that we had those times in our off seasons to train, and then you get to spend the rest of your day kind of figuring out what you're interested in.
Gotcha.
And I feel like I did a good job using that time. And maybe, you know, maybe I took some risks I shouldn't have. But I was able to learn, like I said, and I'm one of those people that is pretty patient and likes to like measure a few times before
Mhm.
trying to make one cut. I want to make it right. But you also learn is you can't be like that if you want to have larger rewards, or things will pass you up if you're not willing to kind of jump in. So that's a thing that I continue to battle with myself today is being patient versus jumping in and being ready. And I move at my own pace sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
listen, right? Because some people say, and again, that's a great, I think I'm giving some quotes, right? What I hear from other people, which is amazing. So they say, oh, there's like, for example, we schedule a meeting next month, right? And they say, oh, we can't make it. Let's make it month after that.
Mhm.
And they say, the good deal will never, disappear, right? It's going to stay there, or a good business plan or a good company. It doesn't matter when we're going to meet. It's still going to be there. They said there's no rush on that thing because
Right.
it's a good, fundamentally, right, business. So, and I think that's a great take. It's what you're saying right now, what I hear. So you are fundamentally like so strong. You say, I have a time. I'm going to educate myself, right? I'm going to look deeper, right? I'm going to look at the numbers, look at the performance, look at the structure system, right? Look at the business model, right? Analyze that. And then I'm going to make my decision. Would you say it's came from all of your experiences? Because again, one more thing I want to add here. When I talk to athletes, everybody has an off season
Mhm.
time. Every single like athlete, like a soccer players, like NFL guys, NHL, right? NBA guys. The difference is, so they spend it different. They spend it different, right? Somebody on the boat, or I don't know, on the Mexico, right? On the
Mhm.
Gulf of Mexico, and then having fun. Somebody's like learning the process, learning some new challenge themselves, right? So would you say all of that came from your experiences as well? You just, put the money here, you analyze the system, you might be win, you might be lost it, right? Who knows? But then it just makes you think through the process, make you think through the systems. Like, can you just, you know, elaborate on that idea?
Yeah, I think as athletes, I think we are like natural people pleasers. We want to say yes. We want to do things like you getting interviewed every day. You want to have a good answer. Um, but I think my off seasons helped me learn how to say no to certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got plenty of time and you could do a lot and it could really damage what you're trying to do in your sport or in your life or whatever. So you got to learn how to say no, how to prioritize. And the mystery of investing for me is okay, similar to that, learning what do you say no to? Like you want to say
Yeah.
yes. And I learned this from someone. They say yes until you can't, right? So you move forward until it doesn't make sense for you anymore, and then you say no, I can't, right? So for me, my off season was learning. Okay, what's important for me to try to say yes to in the future? I'm going to be done
Yeah.
playing in X amount of years. What should I be doing now to help me at that point? I can say yes to these things, but at a certain point, I know that these other things aren't going to be contributing to that, right? Um, and I got married and I had kids, and those things helped me make those
Yeah.
decisions even further. But it was learning what to say no to when you got time, money, and nothing to do
Nothing
because
to do. Yeah.
I'm done training for the day.
Yeah. I think that's incredible, right? And then the world investing for you in general. So, because we're going to go into the chapter of investing right now. When you start to explore that, and then as today, right, what do you think was the best investments of all of yours decisions, of best investments of all time?
And it sounds cliche, but it's always the investment in self.
Uh-huh.
Investing in reading, education, podcast, learning, calling people, like showing up for things where I was like not sure what the outcome would be. Um, and the time I spent working on my sport. But
Mm-hmm.
most importantly, they allow me to kind of be able to even look at these other things. Um, Definitely investment in self. And I feel like, if there's any regret I could have about my career, it's saying, okay, maybe I should have invested even more money into my body or more money into my food plan or
Yeah.
training, or like what else could I have done? Would have made a difference? Maybe not, but um it's like, okay, those were the things that were actually paid off really well. And if I'd started something later, I wish I had started it sooner. That the investment in myself.
Yeah. Do you have those type of regrets, by the way?
Um, I think there's like certain types of training I wish I had started earlier, like barefoot training when I was
Barefoot training.
fresh out of college, or um, just diving deeper into data and information as in
Yeah.
my training, like how much yardage am I doing this week, and all these things that is a lot more accessible now. But if I had been on the cutting edge, maybe it could have got me a couple more games or saved me from an injury. Even though I kind of walked away from the game when I made the decision to myself. It's like if I could have been a little bit more healthy, we may have won. I may have had a chance to win a couple more games, but um, it's like those investments are ones that I say in yourself you can't really go wrong.
Absolutely. Like, nobody can take away it from you, right?
Right,
As well.
right.
It's gonna stay for you with you forever, right? Next question is about like it's blended in business and investing, right? You are actively right now transitioning,
Mhm.
right? Which is again, in my opinion, personal opinion, it's maybe the one of the hardest parts of the life. If you and the higher leveled athlete you are, the harder the transition is. So now you're going through transition. First thing you did, you said, I'm gonna go back to school and I'm gonna go into the business classes, right? I'm gonna go into like whatever it takes for me to understand what's next, which is the business, the world and investing. Um, you actively looking for acquiring like company right now. So can you tell us a little bit like what type of company are you interested in? What type of industry? So what do you want to do next? Like,
Yeah, so I have a self-funded search fund to acquire a lower middle market business in the health, sports, fitness, education, youth education sectors, because those are things I'm passionate about. And I have a bunch of parameters around the size of the business and what regions they're in, and but that's what I'm doing every day now. So I'm reaching out to business owners to see if they're willing to sell,
mm-hmm.
if they're really willing to exit, and trying to negotiate prices and doing site visits, and raising money from investors and building relationships with banks, and thinking about strategy, and also investing in other people who are doing something similar, searchers and entrepreneurs through acquisition. It's kind of popular for people who are, a lot of MBAs aren't being hired into typical finance roles. So, this is a chance for them to go and make themselves CEOs and find opportunities that may be diamonds in the rough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit of needle in the haystack search.
Mm-hmm.
But there's, excellent networks of people who have, one, had success and are willing to give back to that ecosystem. So not only am I searching, but also investing in other searchers who are finding those deals or thinking about certain trends in the economy, and finding business opportunities that should be in a good position in a few years.
Wow, interesting. So, have you found anything like interesting like recently? You something on your books?
I've had 3 deals fall out over the past 12 months, and it's kind of just par for the course. Some people say, if you're a search fund entrepreneur, you should send out 3 LOIs a month,
Okay.
and you'll probably only one of them will work out in the end. So you're doing that for a year to 2 years, searching and raising capital for people to fund your search. And it's a tough process, right? And it can be lonely because most of these times it's either an individual or a partner who's having to kind of gather all these pieces, find the deal, find an
Yeah.
investor, um, make sure that they're willing to sell at a decent price, and make sure all the documents are there, and do due diligence. It's fun for me, right? It's a very challenging game. It's very similar to sports. You're practicing, you're working on all these different things. And you don't know which of these things is going to show up on game day.
Hmm.
But that's the puzzle that I'm in, and I feel like at least my body doesn't hurt while doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. And you can do it for long term, right? You
Right.
can do it for whatever the time you want to do it for.
Yeah.
So the plan, let's say you acquire a company. So do you plan to operate? Do you find like operating partners? So what is the plan for you? Do you consolidate multiple companies? You just roll up what do you want to do in the future? That was them.
I think that there is kind of either a roll up approach and having oversight over existing management of companies and kind of putting them together and scaling away certain things or helping to grow. But I think that, trying to leverage my name, my career, my past, my relationships,
Hmm.
and try to grow and develop, top line of businesses would probably be where I'd be best served in a
Hmm.
company. And working with the management team. I feel like, school has been incredibly helpful in helping me realize what skills I have
Oh yeah.
coming from highly competitive, down to the second and inch, difference maker, and whether you have successful outcomes in sports or not. So
Hmm.
I'm encouraged by that, but also know, it's a long process.
So you just keep saying the school, it's a USC, right? I'm
No, it's
assuming.
so I graduated undergrad from USC,
Yeah.
and then I got into the Wharton School of Business at University of Pennsylvania. So
Pennsylvania. Okay.
I'm in their San Francisco campus. I'm there every other weekend in their executive MBA program, and my peers in the program are incredibly successful.
Wow.
Very similar to my past in sports, and sports are kind of front page news, but
Uh-huh.
I get to be around a group of people who are successful in all kinds of industries, from doctors to lawyers and finance folks and technology people and founders. So it's just it just took me from one room of greatness into another, and that's why I really shot for the stars to get into Wharton. And it's been encouraging. I feel empowered. It's just, putting in the time and the work daily to make the outcomes happen.
I mean, that's incredible, right? And just surround yourself with the people who've done it, right? Or who maybe on a path and they pushing you, right? And they challenge you every single day, though. Yeah, that's incredible. Question for you. So for philanthropy and mentorship, so do you do something on that level? So do you actually participate in the like local community? Because I know you're local, right? You're from Woodland Hills. You grew up in California, obviously. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So my brother and I had a foundation a couple years ago, and as we had children, we kind of did less and less. But now our kids are getting older, so we've gotten back into it. And sports are our best way to connect with
Hmm.
kids, right? So I recently started coaching.
Really?
Yeah, I started coaching 7-on-7 9-year-olds, and it's been amazing. It's done more for me than it probably has for them. I have so much knowledge and love and passion about football and sports
Yeah.
that for me to just keep it, or just keep telling it to my daughters, it wouldn't be fair. So I'm happy to share that, and especially in my own community, my own backyard, with
Oh, that's incredible.
working with people who I played against as a kid, and seeing their kids. And sports is beautiful. If I could be close to sports without having it being my professional job as a coach,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That would be the dream for me.
Yeah. So when you said coaching, is it Park and Rec League or what type of?
It's like youth, not park and rec, but maybe a little bit more competitive than park and rec.
Uh-huh. Is it like a club team or
Yeah, it's a club team.
club team? Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the kids as a coach get the two-time Super Bowl champion who's going to teach them 7-on-7.
Yeah, yeah. They have no. Half of them don't even know that I
They
played.
don't.
Right, because I'm not telling them what I did. I'm just
Oh,
coaching
wow.
them and telling them about certain techniques, and I'm giving them the
That's
same
insane.
stuff that I would give young players when I was in my 11th year, and,
Yeah.
and sitting in meetings with them. So to give it to 9-year-olds and then see them make the plays in action and see the plan come together, it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
I mean, that's incredible. So, um, a last part, right? So, where people can connect to you, right? If they would love to get to know you more, or maybe just they got some deals and they want to give it to you
Yeah,
as well.
if there's anybody looking to sell any of those service like businesses with 15% plus margins, You can reach out to me at Malcolm at Amina Grace Co. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. Just search Malcolm Smith. I should be one of the top 2 that pop up. And yeah, LinkedIn or the website. Yeah, that's it. Or you can Instagram Malc Smitty. Yeah.
That's cool. That's amazing. So, Malcolm, just a general message to the public. So, what do you think people should focus on now?
I think like something we talked about is invest in yourself.
That's huge.
Especially if you're not sure, if you don't feel like you have all the information, go try to find it. Go find a resource that might have it. Go find a friend, a mentor, somebody can point you in the right direction. And be willing to hear to people's advice, but also make your own decisions. And yeah.
Maybe there's a reason you're not sure, right?
Right.
Because if
Absolutely.
you learn enough, you're going to take that action, right?
Yeah,
But when you're not sure, it's like a doubt of, should I do it? Should I not?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think we're all done. Guys, Malcolm, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's incredible, right? And the amount of knowledge and experience you share with people, and, you know, you actively involved in the community. That's incredible for kids. They don't even know you played football, right? And the best possible coach is coaching you football. It might change the lives. It might change the trajectory of some of the kids. You know?
That would be a dream come true. I think about the great coaches that I had and the impact that they've had on my life and continue to have, and the impact that they have on my children without even having met them. Some of the best coaches I've had. So, you know, if I get some of those results, I'll be ecstatic.
Yeah. Okay. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming.
Awesome, Igor. Thank you.